since the style is characterized by a clear femininity that is linked to a certain period around the millennium. It's interesting to examine this phenomenon from both perspectives. And since femininity in metal in general is changing, we focus slightly on why this may be the case and why some want to bring the phenomenon back. Please, next slide. Okay, first, let's talk about the musical features of this concept. The main feature in the contrast between the female melodic clean vocals and the male growling. The concept of Beauty and the Beast is the most common element in Gothic and symphonic metal, which was born out of the genre's need to do things in a novel way, and also out of the natural genealogy of metal subgenres, which we find combines this music with almost all other musical genres. Gradually, the Beauty and the Beast concept began to take hold in more extreme genres such as melodic death metal, and a development we will likely mention today, which tends towards the more modern concept of female-fronted metal. But let's also focus on the sociological side of things. The Beauty and the Beast style clearly defines two stereotypical roles, the gentle female role and the tough male role. While the female role fulfills the romantic notion of gentleness, the male here functions as the aggressive, raw side of things. Over time, however, the female role in metal has changed. In contemporary female-fronted metal, women do both. They now sing melodically, scream, growl, and fulfill all the vocal requirements once held by a woman and a man together. Similarly, the visual side of old school Gothic metal was more unified. The frontwomen of the bands were very similar in their image up to a certain period. The emphasis on a certain hyper-femininity refers especially to the aforementioned earlier period when women played a purely feminine role. Okay, now let's go back to the beginning of this style and phenomenon. Let's watch a video from a concert of the Norwegian band Theatre of Tragedy, where we can see the combination of everything that defined this style at the turn of the millennium. Okay, play please. Okay, and second example. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here we see an overview of some of the bands that have continued the Beauty and the Beast style in contrasting ways. For example, the Norwegian band The Sins of Thy Beloved, the Norwegian band Tristania, the Dutch band After Forever, and also Dutch band Epica. Not all of these bands are still going today, but they're ones that are, of course, have a musical progression that is built on the same principle, the Beauty and the Beast style. Next slide, please. Yeah, the band Theatre of Tragedy, which you might have seen a moment ago, made a certain brand out of this style, which then influenced the other bands you might have seen in the previous slide. This is a brand, a marketing tool that at one time ensured the popularity of many bands who, in the instability of the metal genre, filled a hole in the market with something that wasn't there. The big question here is whether women were more of an accessory or the main element in the band, or did women make this band successful and become a cult phenomenon that some still want to emulate today? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, in this chapter, we would like to demonstrate the gradual evolution of women in metal, including through specific musical examples. Next slide, please. Around the year 2000s, the female metal looked completely different than it does today. It was much more intertwined with lyricism, romanticism, and archaic symbols in music lyrics and visuals. The concept of the music was much more melodic and orchestral. The vocals were in some cases much less perfect than the sophisticated intonations of some vocalists today. An example would be the band The Sins of Thy Beloved, with singer Anita Ogland, whose vocals I would specify as a soft soprano with lyrical coloring, without strong dynamics and slightly monotonous feeling. Here again, we encounter what could be called hyperfemininity, which was mainly reflected in the vocal expression and stage presentation of the female singers. Men and women as vocalists here occupy two different worlds. Beauty and the Beast style circa 2000 escalated into its most iconic moment. Next slide, please. Okay, and situation now. While at the turn of the millennium, women as front women showed very typical and similar characteristics. Now the situation is much more variable. The women now holds the function of melodic vocals as well, as male growling is vocally much more sophisticated and is essentially both roles, beauty but also beast. Next slide, please. Okay, here are three examples of the evolution of women in metal. From the Sins of Thy Beloved, who represent a very true Beauty and the Beast style, who have to Epica, who have gradually evolved into a band with opulent grand arrangements, to Spirit Box, whose female vocalist Courtney LaPlante handles melodic vocals and growling. You can start with. Okay, and I would now like to turn the floor over to David, who will introduce the first chapter of our presentation.
So, what about now? What is happening right now in the world? We chose to showcase this section with examples from our own countries, from Portugal and from Czechia. Instead of focusing on the big markets like USA or UK, Germany, Finland, etc. So we will showcase what's happening now by using such examples from Czechia.
Yeah, and I would like to introduce some female singers from my country who are currently frontwomen in the metal scene. Later, when we move on to examples from the land of David, you may notice that the musical feeling is slightly different. But what we want to demonstrate is the fact that the variation of women in contemporary metal is really big, and at the same time, their frequency is constantly increasing. The samples are from Silent Stream of Godless Elegy, Rosa Nocturna, Artemion, and Alia Tempora. Please start with that.
Synečku můj milý, po stráních jsme chodili, ulehli v rozmarín, těla bílá, halil ze mě
Next example.
Yes.
Come a little bit closer, no need to shy. She's here for you, she's here for you. Take care of Indian with you, no need to shy. She's here for you, she's here for you. Anděl a všechno na dosah si měl, věčný život si pro sebe nechat měl. Úkol tvůj byl o světlo lidem pečovat, jejich cesty navždy v míru zachovat. Byl si třenka, obyvatel vyšších sfér, světlo nož, dostal jméno Lucifer.
Last example?
Yes, last one.
So, this is the best bridge to now showcase from Portugal. From Portugal, 2023, the band Enchantia with vocalist Ruto Fevereiro, they are making this kind of music. The next example is from a very recent band, Music in Low Frequencies. They are playing a very aggressive type of modern black metal. Take a look at this. I'd say brutally beautiful. And the next example is Glacier, a symphonic metal band from Portugal, and they are making this type of music. And the last example, Occultist with vocalist Beatriz Mariano, that are playing this kind of death metal. What a beauty. So there's this question. We showcased some bands that in which women are taking other roles, other types of vocals, and it does not end here. Many women are taking on other roles in different roles in the band. So we just showcased vocal types, but this is extendable to other performing tasks. But we came out with a question. Are there any bands still using the Beauty and the Beast style as it first emerged? This is a nice question. We tried to answer it, and we found some examples, and we are going to showcase them now. So, Reinarie, which is a band from Norway, they released a single in 2020, Desolate Desolation. We call this version of the Beauty and the Beast style the Gothic inspiration one. So let's listen. So this is like the Gothic iteration or modern iteration of the style. We found another example in Alatar, a band from Finland. Unfortunately, the vocalist Alea Starbridge, she's not with us anymore. She passed away in 2016. I'm sorry, my camera is turned off. Okay, right now. So in 2017, they released this album, and we call this iteration the breathy one because of the style that she uses in her voice. So in every example, we have the female voice or the woman voice, and then the growl in the man. The last example for us is the most striking one. It's Morke from Norway. This is a band that has been formed by Johansson, former element of the Sins of Thy Beloved, and his wife, Scarlett. And they released two albums in 2018 and 2017, 2018. And we call this style the nostalgic iteration of the Beauty and the Beast. So no words needed. Let's listen. So it's really clear. And now we will move on to our final remarks. So the way we see it, there can be two ways to look at this. One is the side of innovation of the style Beauty and the Beast, in which some bands have innovated the concept in these and many other ways that we have showcased. But there's this thing with retro style, this using the style as it was back then. That style seems to have had its time and place, and few bands are returning to it the way it was. At least this is one observation. And this leads us to some final remarks and questions that we want to leave open and answer some of that. So there's an obvious link between the style upbringing and the role of women in metal. So that's obvious. But we can look at it as a fading trend also, which may be linked to women taking on different roles. So that might translate into less interest in performing such a role. That leads to some questions. So is tenderness out of trend right now? If so, are we losing under quotes, such as striking and very singular musical style? So on the other hand, is aggressiveness fashionable nowadays in a way that women are drawn away from Beauty and the Beast stereotypical vocal and visual styles? And why haven't men reversed the trend by taking on the beauty side and moving away from the beast stereotype? We looked around, we didn't find any example of a band in which the roles would be reversed, and that's quite interesting. We have no answer to this. Maybe one of you know any band that has done that, but this is very singular, very unique. So we think that there might be a relationship with emotional response to sound. So there's plenty of literature trying to establish a relation between emotional response and types of sounds. Growling, as literature is saying, will always be aggressive. We always associate growling with aggressiveness. While certain types of sounds that are more often found in women voices, are more associated with tenderness. There's some studies that have shown this. So the style might have come out from stereotypes, exactly, which we can take on from two intertwined perspectives. First, acknowledging that there might be some innate source of emotional response to certain acoustical signals that might help understand how this hardwired thing translated into a musical style from the sound point of view. Second, if we are aware of such response and acoustical properties, that in fact allows for musical experiment and this subversion of the roles, so conscious of it as a tool to subvert the roles. So for us, the overall conclusion is that the evolution of the style is obviously linked to how women are taking on more roles in heavy metal. Great. Which in turn is also linked to the fading away of such a unique style that, even though dated, only women seem able to perform such types of voices or vocals. And we also conclude that women singing in that old school style should not translate into their personality, into fragility or tenderness all alone. This should be kept in the expressive field, not on the judgmental or side. So, but this should be rather be associated with women performing whatever they want, a beauty, a beast, both, or none. And that concludes our presentations. Thank you very much, everyone, for being there. Thank you for taking us, and this is it.